Welcome to the IEEE Future Networks podcast series, Podcasts with the Experts, an IEEE Future Directions digital studio production. In this episode, we bring you part one of a two-part podcast on 5G security. In part one, our experts discuss foundational security capabilities, and in part two, the focus is on use cases, including device and application security. Our subject matter experts are Ashutosh Dutta and Aman Hamad, who are co-chairs of the Security Working Group of the International Network Generations Roadmap. Ashutosh is also co-chair of the IEEE Future Networks Initiative and a senior scientist with Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab. Aman is an industrial and IoT security specialist in cybersecurity and privacy with PwC Canada. Ashutosh and Aman, thank you for taking some time today to contribute to the IEEE Future Networks podcast series. Can you tell us about 5G security and why this generation presents a unique set of risks?
5G is different than previous generations in many ways. The previous generation, when I say, is 1G, 2G, 3G, and 4G. Previous generations of network, they mostly focused on a bandwidth intensive application. On the other hand, 5G networks not only focuses on massive bandwidth type application, but also focuses on massive sensing and ultra low latency type applications. So in order to support that, there is a need to design a end-to-end architecture or network that is flexible, adaptive, and scalable enough to react to the changes in the network quite rapidly and efficiently. Thus, 5G has adopted many new technologies in various parts of the network. That includes changes in the radio access network, such as new radio, MIMO, millimeter wave, in the core network, separation of user plane, control plane, service-based architecture, densification of cells, entities like edge clouds, software-defined networking, network slicing, device-to-device communication, and IoT, etc. So security requirements for 5G does need to overlay and permeate through different layers of 5G systems, including physical, network, and application, as well as different parts of end-to-end 5G architecture. And that will also include the risk management framework and take into account evolving security threats landscape. So while these enablers bring various benefits and features, it also increases the threat landscape due to the introduction of these new enablers or technologies. For example, the additional SDN and NAB components and network functions, they increase the threat attack surface and expose the end-to-end system to additional cyber threats. Some of the security risks that are pertinent to 5G may include network slicing threats such as denial of service to other slices or side channel attacks across slices. And these risks are amplified, for example, when a certain slice is dedicated to a specific critical set of applications such as emergency response. So all in all, 5G network, although it includes a lot of features and adds some enablers, it also increases the landscape, threat landscape, by posing unique set of risks.
Just one thing on the last point you mentioned. When 5G evolved to carry more of the critical and more of the cyber physical applications and use cases such as smart cities, transportation, energy systems, these kind of risks that might hinder the infrastructure will have a serious impact on where 5G is trying to enable the applications, specifically for such use cases. So we're looking at a very different landscape because of all the pieces that build the 5G system.
What are the additional security pillars in 5G ecosystems?
Sure. So when you look at 5G ecosystem, basically looking at end-to-end, right? You have a device, you have radio access network, you have edge cloud, you have core network, and you also have applications. And if I look into the different pillars, I can, and from end-to-end perspective, these pillars enable 5G features, right? But at the same time, we are also looking into the risks that are associated with pillars. And I can just name a few. Let's start with Cloud RAN security, SDN controller security, proactive security analytics, virtual agent security or hypervisor container-based security, orchestration security, network slicing security, open source security, security function virtualization, and faster authentication. So these are some of the additional components where we have to look minutely what are the additional risks those are provided by adding these new 5G enablers. For example, if you have SDN controller that gives you the programmability and flexibility, adaptability on the network, but at the same time, there are additional risks on the SDN controller. If SDN controller is under attack, or its configuration gets changed, or somebody hacks into SDN controller through northbound API or southbound API, the whole programmable part becomes completely contaminated. So instead of stopping bad traffic, it's going to allow the bad traffic to go through. Similarly, if you have orchestration security, if you do not have enough security on the orchestrator that allows to instantiate new network function VNFs, the virtual network functions, one can just hijack the orchestration procedure, and instead of orchestrating a specific VNF, it may orchestrate a wrong VNF in a wrong place. And that itself is pretty bad in terms of reliable operation. Similarly, for the hypervisor or virtualization security, if a hypervisor is under attack or gets compromised, and then the VNF, the virtual network function from one tenant, may be able to attack another tenant by compromising the reliable operation. So these are some of the pillars when we design an end-to-end 5G network we need to look into and make sure we have proper security requirement and mitigation technique which are available and designed from the very get-go.
Where are these risks focused? Are they mainly at the consumer level or at the enterprise level as well?
So different security risks that are uniquely related to 5G are observed both on the consumer level and as well as the enterprise level, right? I'll just give an example because 5G is currently positioned to enable connectivity across many verticals, right? So the security risk will be largely determined by the types of use cases for these verticals or the types of application that are supported by these verticals, right? And these verticals could be transportation, fast responder, smart city, tactical networks, or industrial automation. And the application they support may have different key performance indicators. For example, they may need different kind of bandwidth, different kind of latency, or different kind of system control. So based on these KPIs, we need to design our 5G network, and for each of these KPIs, we have to enable those components like Edge Cloud or SDN-NFV that may need proper security measures to be in place.
Maybe one point to add into this is it's helpful always to look at the reference architecture for 5G. So up till the end, we're looking into the end user devices and systems that are enabled by the 5G. And then after that demarcation point, we're looking at the main core networks and the connectivity to the cloud. Now, at the end user level, we might be even dealing on that level with enterprise and end users as well. So that speaks volumes to the complexity of 5G and how the risks are propagated through even some architecture demarcation points, making it much more challenging to enforce cybersecurity functions and require much more creativity and critical thinking when imposing security solutions. For example, one example is in one survey, most of the respondents from ISP providers and telecom carriers responded saying that they are looking at zero trust models to enable security on the 5G. And zero trust models requires really robust, scalable certificate management on all end devices and subcomponents of the 5G architecture before within the endpoint ecosystem and within the 5G core system. So this is one of the solutions that can actually mitigate risks from end to end on a 5G platform, some types of the risks.
And how do you anticipate security risk and mitigation with 5G evolving over time?
So within any security framework, when you look at a complex system and you look at a system that incorporates, as Ashutosh mentioned, many building blocks, the designers of the system have to incorporate from the very beginning an approach to assess the threats that are evolving with time and assess the impact of such threats if they are actually happening. And this is usually formalized through a risk management framework. So we believe that this is conducive for a 5G network to perform these realistic risk assessments on some of the scenarios, and people should be paying attention to the scenarios that are relevant to the use cases. For example, when we're looking at threats of the type of electromagnetic interference, this has always been there, but with 5G and the different use cases for 5G, this takes a new shape and form. Also, risks related to resources exhaustion, and this is relevant to SDN, virtual function, cloud resources, slicing. So any of these modular blocks that shape a service, if they are targeted within the control platform or from a user via a massive IoT request or something of that sort, this will cause a resource exhaustion that will impact the reliability of the 5G as a whole system or a major component of the 5G. So a risk management platform will say, okay, these are the threats that are currently happening. Let's assess for some of the use cases what are the impacts, and based on that, let's look at the existing security controls that are implemented and what's missing, what is the gap, and what's the priority to mitigate the high risks within that time frame. And adopting that methodology will help us as the threats continue to evolve, because threats are just a point in time and your security metrics are a point in time. Now, a basic evolution or innovation that will help 5G is incorporating that risk assessment into security automation, meaning if by some innovation and research we can formalize an indicator of risk saying, okay, based on the latest threat intelligence, we know this is happening outside in the environment, in the ecosystem, then can we automate part of the provisioning of security functions to proactively protect certain parts of the network in anticipation of this threat vector? So this is where automation ties into risk management. This is not yet the case, but we expect this to be more prevalent in future systems to enable us to mitigate evolving cyber threats.
Yeah.
Ashutosh, do you want to add?
Sure. I'd like to add a few things, Iman, here. I just take a specific use case, and we have a term here which is 5G evolving over time. So today we have 5G, 5G beyond, maybe it'll be 6G. That is one specific example I like to give is open source. As 5G and beyond evolves, we are going to be relying maybe more on open source type solutions. While open source gives us a lot of modularity and acceleration to deploy, it also has potential risks. So that is something we all need to keep in mind. What are the potential risks? associated with the open source. And the second thing, Iman, you talked about automation, which is very important. How quickly you detect if there is an attack happening and how quickly you mitigate that. This closed loop automation to a large extent depend on the traffic variance, the service variance means type of application, and they call it control variance. So where exactly you want to put this closed loop automation, whether it should be in the edge, should be in the core, or deep down in the application layer. So to a large extent, that will determine how quickly you can detect and mitigate. And over time, I'd like to add that some of the AI and machine learning techniques could be applicable to determine the attack before the attack actually happens. And Iman, I think you talked about zero trust, right, where how we can deploy those techniques to prevent the attack altogether.
Yeah, excellent point, Ashton. Just a follow-up. And even when we look at automation that is enabled by AI and machine learning, as we have discussed many times, how to monitor AI and machine learning to establish the trust in the algorithm and to ensure that it continues to perform consistently with what has been designed, the design goals for the algorithms, right?
What potential solutions might be developed to make 5G reliably secure?
So when we look at the solutions that will enable 5G to catch up, to continuously be ahead of the game in cybersecurity and be able to deliver to its promise of being reliable and resilient, some of the main trends are already being seen now, but they need to be evolved over time and innovated over time. One of the building blocks is encryption and certificate management. And one of the subtleties in that is, as we all know, quantum computing threatens the current encryption algorithms and certificate infrastructure. So to be robust, or future-proof, we have to start right now looking into PKI infrastructure, public key infrastructure, to enable the zero trust models with quantum safe algorithms and encryption. That's one of the approaches. The other approach, we are looking now into zero trust. But as zero trust will require a massive scale of public key infrastructure and certificate management. We have started seeing trust platforms such as blockchain. Blockchain enables you within that certificate management to say this endpoint is trusted to actually connect to the network, or this antenna is, or this base station is not a road base station. It's an authentic part of the network. So similar solutions to establish trust, whether it's blockchain or something similar, that is scalable and reliable, will add to reliability of the 5G network. Other solutions should take into account the use cases for low latency. And the challenge comes from, let's imagine together a use case for transportation or power systems. If we are looking at 5G enabling these low latency use cases, then the delay that is incorporated by security functions going back through to the core and going to the core and back, this might not be acceptable within the key performance indicators for such use cases. So needed innovation will say, okay, at the edge, how can I enable these use cases within the low latency requirements with security guarantees? And this will require innovations into light authentication or fast authentication. And this is beginning to be investigated in the academia and industry as well to enable these use cases. So I've mentioned so far trust platforms, safe quantum algorithms or encryption, and low latency light authentication, for example. These are three examples of gaps that are existing in security controls right now that need more investments to establish reliable and robust security controls. In addition, one other point that we have to address as well is AI and machine learning. We know that the complexity of 5G will require orchestration and optimization that can only be handled by of the likes of machine learning and AI. And this will become more prevalent as we go to 5G and beyond networks. Now, it's necessary to establish some monitoring of these algorithms as they function, especially if they are to orchestrate security functions.
The dynamic service chaining or security as a service, right? So that is an important piece, and that can be enabled by having a closed loop that we talked about, something that detects. That means you need to have a solid platform for security monitoring. That means ability to monitor the control, user plane, control plane, and data plane signaling. At the same time, having analytics that can provide the analytics to an orchestrator platform like ONAP, and then having an interface from your orchestration platform to a software-defined network controller like ODL or ONOS type, and finally having some enforcement point on the DDoS or IDS or IPS type functionality that interfaces with this SDN controller. So that will allow one to detect any attacks that's coming up, either at your Cloud RAN or at the core or at the application layer, and how quickly you can send it to orchestration. So what is going to happen is you recover and resolve at the same time. So while you are detecting the attack, who is attacking it, and the details of the attack, and trying to mitigate, at the same time you are recovering the network resources by having the ability to dynamically scale up the network. So in that situation, in the case of a denial of service attack, you can still sustain the attack, and any kind of priority services, they will still continue to be provided while you figure out who is attacking it and finally mitigate that and then scale down the network. So I believe this kind of security as a service with the help of dynamic service chaining will be very, very essential.
Speaks to the opportunities that are provided by 5G for isolation, proper mitigation, and forensics afterwards. I thought maybe we should add something on the application layer for security capabilities that will enable 5G to continue to operate, because as you know, 5G extends from the physical layer to the application layer. One of the use cases for security is around 5G fraud, and we haven't touched on that previously, but within 5G fraud, 5G with all the pieces that tie into it enable providers and carriers better control over fraud within the subsystem and within the use cases.
As threat vectors targeting 5G evolve, what would be the best approach to ensure reliable system operation?
That means we need to have a close connection between the KPIs that you discussed, right, for any specific type of application, and then how do we adapt your network accordingly to make sure your KPIs are properly attained, right? Because if you, the other thing I was thinking is, I think you might have talked about it, they call it defense in depth. That means you have to design your network, and from the very get-go, you need to keep all the security, potential security risk in mind and design your network accordingly. It's not like you wake up and figure out, well, this is a security risk and I go to design my network. So we have to keep in mind potential threat vectors, do a end-to-end analysis. When I say that, you open up your network, open up your interface, network interface, look at all the components that comprise your network, and try to do a thorough analysis, we call it threat taxonomy, of each of the component, each of the interface, and what types of attacks could happen. If you design that ahead of time, then you can think about the mitigation techniques and potential risks that you mentioned earlier to have the mitigation technique that can be applied. If you do not have a security control, you make sure you put the proper security control in place. It has to be like an iterative process, right, Iman?
Yeah. Yes, exactly, and that's what risk management framework does. But I like the point, Ashutosh, where you mentioned the system is not a point in time. The system design is not a point in time. So 5G is an evolving, living system, and I don't think that's an overstatement, because the orchestration, the automation, the optimization, the dynamic allocation of resources between the user and the control plane, the different, how you can actually shape the network based on the changing KPIs, based on the changing attacks, based on the current state of system security or system service levels, required service levels, attest to the requirement for operators, security analysts that are working on the system, and automation, like what are the right levels of automation to make that feasible. It goes back into, yes, you have to have a very deep understanding of the system, the services, the APIs, the system calls between the APIs, and what components work how, and even in the design of network slicing for proper isolation, so that you have a reliability metric of the system because of the security by design that you have done at the very beginning, but that you will continue to do over time as your cases changes, as the threat landscape changes, and as your load or your requirements change.
What are the inherent security opportunities resulting from 5G enablers?
So first of all, I like to make it clear, when you say security opportunities, means when we add or move to a new type of network, add new enablers, that provide us some opportunity in terms of reducing the capex or opex or smooth operation of the network, etc. But we already discussed some of the security issues associated with those enablers. What I'm talking about here is there are some security implications that could be minimized by having these enablers. So there are two things. One is, by introducing those enablers, there are security issues that need to be taken care of. And this question we're talking about the security opportunities that will be provided by these enablers, which are otherwise not available in previous generation of network. And I'll give you a few examples here. First example is by having a 5G network and 5G technology, it inherently gives the resilience support and flexibility support. So I'll just take an example of the network function virtualization and SDN. These are the enablers of 5G. When they were not there, if there was an attack taking place, a denial of service attack, and at that time it was taking long time to detect, long time to re-provision the network, or dynamically provision the network. But with 5G technology, this specific issue is taken care of, because NFV and SDN by default inherently provides this resiliency of the network by scaling up and scaling down the network on demand. So denial of service attack, the effect of denial of service attack is minimized by having this resiliency. At the same time, if there is attack taking place, how quickly I detect and mitigate that? By having SDN controller in this closed loop function, it has the ability to dynamically go and service chain this DDoS, IDS, and IPS, and block this malicious traffic going to any customer's premises. So that is a opportunity, the programmability and flexibility. The third one I wanted to talk about is slicing. Network slicing is another enabler. So network slicing itself provides the ability to assign resources to priority applications. Let's say IoT application, fast responder application, automotive application, they all get resources from end to end. So this is a opportunity, right? But at the same time, we discussed earlier, slicing itself also gives rise to some security issues that needed to be taken care of. So this question, we are just highlighting some of the opportunities, security opportunities, those are provided, because if there is no slicing, the priority services is properly not hampered, and you cannot separate one application from another application, right? If a first responder wants to send high quality of service audio and video, that can be made possible by use of slices. But at the same time, virtualization is another opportunity where you can segment your computing resources and provide one type of application to one VNF or tenants, another type of application to another VNF or tenant, right? So these are some of the high-level security-related opportunities that we can obtain from 5G type technology. Iman, you'd like to add to that?
Thanks, Ashutosh. Perfect. I just want to follow up on saying these capabilities of 5G, the enablers of 5G, do provide some inherent characteristics that are intuitive to expand our security and controls, even provide security controls that are not that were not available in other systems, such as slicing. What I wanted to add is to make sure that we reap the benefits of these inherent characteristics, we need to actually implement additional security controls and properly design the system with this thinking in mind. Meaning, for example, when we design the slicing, we have proper isolation of the slices and some cap on resources for critical slices, for example, critical service assigned slices, to make sure that if something happens to the resources, these slices continue to survive. This takes us to talk about other types of opportunity that comes from 5G, and I guess I hinted at that when we said properly designed with security in mind. So this requires investment in the security of 5G and a continuous improvement of this security. But this could give us several folds of benefits. One benefit is to enable our system to be resilient, flexible, reliable, as Ashutosh mentioned. The other thing is it enables the providers and carriers to extend their business into new arenas. And I'll mention one example. We hear more about security as a service. If a service provider or a carrier implements the proper security controls up to the edge with monitoring, with some forensics and incident response, then that service provider can actually offer security as a service for its clients, including enterprise clients and different use cases such as a certain transportation provider or a smart city.
Yeah, thank you, Iman. I also like to add one more thing I forgot to discuss, which is very, very important. As the operators are trying to get into 5G, they're building this SDN and FB type network. One of the component is Cloud RAN and separation of user plane and control plane, right? So by having Cloud RAN or ORAN type networks, you are separating your BBU and RRH functionality. So thereby you are also dynamically adding RAN functionality, RAN functions in the network. So in case of lots of IoT type device, billions of IoT devices trying to get connected, you can easily scale up your RAN functionality on the BBU side in the cloud, right? And the same security monitoring mitigation technique can be easily ported in the Cloud RAN. Thereby you can detect the type of attacks early enough, so your core network is not really affected. So that is another opportunity as well.
Where can people learn more about 5G security?
So Iman and I are the security working group co-chair. That's one of the roadmap working group. It's called IEEE Future Network International Network Generation Roadmap. We call it INGR. There are 15 roadmap working groups within Future Networks, IEEE Future Networks, and security is one of them. If you visit the website futurenetworks.ieee.org/roadmap, you will get to know more details. We have already published the first edition of the INGR roadmap. You should be able to find out in the website, and that talks about some of the things Iman and I spoke about today, but it goes into details of 3-year, 5-year, and 10-year, how the security landscape is going to look like, how it's going to be useful for 5G and beyond, or 6G or 7G. So that's a good source. You can take a look. In addition, we also have bi-weekly meetings. You're welcome to join this group, contribute. We have started working on the second generation of the roadmap. At the same time, there are lots of opportunities like podcasts like we are doing today, webinars, research articles, and testbeds, etc. Iman, you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I want to add just one thing is being involved with these initiatives within IEEE enables you to kind of get more visibility into what's happening in parallel, the different initiatives and efforts, as well as help shape if we feel, for example, there is a need or a serious gap in security in a certain area that we anticipate to be prevalent in 5 to 10 years, we can point into that, and that we can actually work on making special editions, special journals, special conference symposium that will provide an incentive for people to pay attention to these gaps. So it's very rewarding to be part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, that's a good point. So there are lots of resources here. While IEEE, with the help of we have 46 societies within IEEE, about 23 of those are contributing to IEEE's Future Networks initiative. And Security Working Group also does collaborate with other 14 working groups to see what are the potential security implication they might have. For example, MIMO, hardware, millimeter wave, edge automation application. So we have an opportunity to interact and collaborate with them and find out how we can look at their work and what are the potential security implications there. So this is happening within IEEE, but we also do collaborate and attend other relevant standards like 3GPP, IETF, ITU, and ETSI. And we try to complement the work they're doing by developing new technologies or new algorithms, new optimization techniques in security, how it can help the architecture being developed by, let's say, 3GPP or protocol developed by IETF. So that is an added benefit. You want to add anything, Iman, on the standard side?
Just a collaboration with the standards group of IEEE, because we all know like how the strength of IEEE when it comes to standards. So there's also the opportunity within IEEE to look at the gaps in standards or try to facilitate more conversations between the main standards bodies that you mentioned, Ashutosh.
Right. And the other thing I wanted to also mention about the testbeds. Within IEEE Future Network Initiative, we have a testbed working group. But at the same time, we also have MOU agreement with a few of the testbed like WinLab, Rutgers WinLab, and 5G Lab in Germany, and few other testbed where IEEE volunteers or members of Future Network Initiative, and they get a chance to log in and do any kind of experimental work. So, for example, if somebody wants to try some security-related experiment, they can join this group, and by being a member of this group, you get access to these labs and can run your own experiments. We are also trying to collaborate with NSF's the power testbed. We're trying to see how we can get access to those testbeds. At the same time, IEEE standards activity recently has come up with IEEE Open, where they are building an open source testbed. Thereby, you can try various security-related experiments. So collaboration is very important, not only with academics, with industry, with the vendor community, develop the security requirements ahead of time, bring it to standards, and build some proof of concept to make sure some of the security challenges or issues that we talked about should be validated or demonstrated, right? So it's like a complete ecosystem, and we need help from and collaboration from everybody around the world to make the 5G and beyond more secure. Iman, anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, one final thought is around trust. So when we discuss security or cybersecurity in general, we're talking about how we trust the technology that enable our day-to-day life. And this is exactly what we're talking about when we talk about being involved in shaping the initiatives or trying to be part of the ecosystem to make sure that we build trustworthy systems, or we help guide the design and build out of trustworthy systems.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the IEEE Future Networks podcast with the experts. Discover more about the IEEE Future Networks initiative and inquire about participating in this effort by visiting our web portal at futurenetworks.ieee.org.